I'm glad to join this beautiful gathering of dynamic women and just to share the journey. Everyone has a journey, so just to share. The world is heavily tormented at the moment. The global leadership crisis, conflict, chaos, the rise of national sentiment, failed political leaders who hang on to power, shifting global narratives. It never ends. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Yes. Somewhere in the world today, at this very moment, a mother mourns a child. A partner feels a sting of betrayal. A man sits in silence, stripped of his work. A young girl endures the unspeakable act of rape, and an accident leaves a bright young student in a wheelchair. But somehow, the world moves on. So early in life, I came to see that most of us long for a happiness untouched by sorrow, a life untouched by loss, health unshadowed by illness, freedom unburdened by responsibility, a career free of uncertainty, and a wealth that comes without too much struggle. Yet deep down, I've always known that this perfection is impossible. But life, in all its mystery, weaves stories of grief and loss, courage and endurance. They carve the landscape of our experience, not only to shape how we see the world, but to also give us a choice in how to respond, to awaken with awareness, or to collapse into the roles of victims or reluctant heroes of our own unfinished stories. Everyone on the planet has a story to tell. 9 billion stories of cowardice or heroism, survival or defeat, tragedy or triumph, and every story is a brushstroke on the canvas of our lives. Our own personal stories are a tool to define our worldview, and the perception of our experiences writes the tale. We can paint shadows of despair and resignation, or we can craft a masterpiece layered with resilience, learning, and possibility. So let me share my own story, the journey into consciousness, and how I came to encourage leaders to behave ethically and embrace conscious leadership began not in light, but in darkness. Many years ago, as I sat beside my 21-year-old daughter in a coma after a horrific accident, for 10 long months in ICU, she was breathing yet she was absent, present yet gone. I searched desperately for her essence, and in that searching, I found myself plunged into questions I'd never dared to ask. What is life? What is death? What is consciousness? And what is the purpose of this life? At the same time, I juggled the chaos of a corporate life as a mother with a child in need, while simultaneously navigating a manipulative corporate environment. Not my multi-million rand budget, positional power, nor my executive skill set could prepare me for the unanticipated distress that life was about to shovel my way. Not able to bear the anguish, I had to find another way of being in the world. So I walked away from corporate life and everything I knew to begin my search. The search took me on multiple journeys across the world, and like many in search of truth and consciousness, I wanted to deepen the power of purpose, productivity, profit, and responsibility, infused with a different kind of thinking and being in the world. This exploration and the intense longing for answers took me to the far reaches of the globe, meeting humanitarians, priests, philosophers, philanthropists, saints, swamis, gurus, rabbis, and God's solution merchandisers. I asked them 2 questions. What is truth? And what is consciousness? And they all gave me a different answer. And although the answer was varied, one truth emerged, that we as human beings must marry the technology of how to make a living with the psychology of how to live. Look at the world we live in. Challenges are here, and they are not optional. They appear in countries, in companies, and in homes. And yet every crisis can become an invitation to lead, to live, to transform, and to behave consciously. However, in this country, corruption has hollowed out our nation. Politicians feed at the trough while people go hungry. Corporate leaders destroy livelihoods for shareholder gain. Greed becomes a system and indifference its silent partner. The most destructive force of any country or business are corrupt and crooked politicians and narcissistic business leaders. We have seen such leaders, both in government and business, so morally corrupt that they drag entire economies to the edge of ruin. I have watched self-serving CEOs destroy livelihoods, erode trust, and reduce people to numbers. But here is the truth. Every decay births renewal. Every shadow offers the possibility of light. Out of the hot mess of our times, a new kind of leader must arise, a conscious leader. And if I may say so women must stand up and show themselves, to rise to power despite the odds. Because, as Shamila said, we don't show ourselves enough. Because we know that these corridors we have walked them, and we have exposed the toxic halls of corporate power, where we have seen fear and masculine ego corrode human dignity. When we as women in the workplace can no longer bear the dissonance between our souls and the soullessness of our system, what do? Because the collective intellectual understanding of consciousness, love, nor kindness fits into the complexity of the corporate drama. This is where we are forced to act as catalysts for change, for the ethos of humanity and leadership. We have to think of those defining moments when we are called upon to choose the hero's journey, to face our demons, travel through darkness, and find a way into a less brutal, less corrupt, and more gentle world. This is not abstract. It is deeply practical, and for in every political arena, in every boardroom, and in every home, we face the same choice: to surrender to greed and corruption, cruelty and brutality, or to rise to courage, compassion, and clarity. The choice to feed our vices or to awaken to our consciousness is the choice we have to make. On the one hand, we have human greed, new depths of malicious behavior and hunger for power and more. And on the other, if we look deeper, there is hope. We can acknowledge that one of the consequences of our vices as human beings is that it can facilitate transformation. So what do I mean by that? It means that this transformation can give rise to leadership that is conscious. And the bedrock of conscious leadership is simple. It is not about flowcharts, metrics, data, and strategy, although it has its place in business. Conscious leadership is about humanity, about trust, transparency, authenticity. You cannot fake integrity. You cannot outsource compassion. And you cannot pretend to care. Especially as women who engage with righting the wrongs, you cannot fake credibility, integrity, and trust. However, instilling a culture of belongingness and doing the right thing makes all the difference. You know, I'm often asked, what do I mean by conscious leadership? So I can best describe it when I was addressing a congress of doctors some time ago. A murderer takes a knife and cuts his victim. A doctor takes a knife and cuts his patient. The action is the same. The only difference is a thread of intent. That is the difference between ruin and redemption, between cruelty and compassion. The one wants to take a life and the other wants to save a life. The consciousness of one is murder and profit, while the consciousness of the other is care and compassion. Consciousness is the lens that transforms the act. And since this is the month where we celebrate women, our consciousness as women matters. It is critical for us to understand and embrace our own consciousness. You know, women in the world of work sometimes still have to navigate some of the treacherous corridors of the corporate world, and life can often get challenging, stressful, and sometimes untenable. We allow ourselves to be driven by fear and lured into manipulation, greed, personal agendas, all of that in our work environments. In this process, we lose something of ourselves. We lose our balance, our innate nobility, our freedom and courage. Too often we are told we are too much or not enough. Too often our brilliance is dismissed as crazy. If we think out of the box or do something that pushes boundaries, we are called crazy. And perhaps crazy may be exactly what the world needs right now. Can you please play the video?
If we show emotion, we're called dramatic. To play against men, we're nuts. And if we dream of equal opportunity, delusional. When we stand for something, we're unhinged. When we're too good, there's something wrong with us. And if we get angry, we're hysterical or rational or just being crazy. But a woman running a marathon was crazy.
Officials tried to pull her on course.
A woman boxing was crazy. A woman dunking, crazy. Coaching an NBA team, crazy. A woman competing in a hijab, changing her sport, landing a double cork 1080, or winning 23 Grand Slam, having a baby, and then coming back for more. Crazy, 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 and crazy. So if they want to call you crazy, fine. Show them what crazy can do. If we show emotion, we're called dramatic.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a 90 ad, and I thought it was highly appropriate, especially for Women's Month. But let me tell you, but for now, the world belongs to the next generation of women. So it belongs to the young women of today who are lucky enough to grow up in a different era than their older colleagues. Many of my generation and before had dreams that were crushed because there were certain expectations from being a woman. Thankfully, this has changed. So the question remains, what is the essence of being a woman? Why do we need a Women's Day? Why are we still fighting for women's rights? Whose permission do we need to get those rights? Whose? And how do we negotiate in a man's world without emasculating the men in our lives? So the essence of womanhood is not in the permission granted by others, be it from a father, from family, husband, or bosses. It is in the innate nobility, courage, and consciousness and strength that resides within each one of us. Our purpose as women is not to run around trying to save the world, although it has its place. Our purpose is to go within, do the inner work that allows us to show up as our most influential and powerful selves, as mothers, as daughters, as partners, as sisters, and as leaders, which will then inspire others to do the same, and more importantly, enable us to discover and understand who we truly are. There is a story in the East about the Himalayan musk deer who had a scent gland located just below his abdomen. The gland is a pouch of musk, but for most of its life, the deer wanders through the forest seeking the scent, unaware that it's carrying it inside its body. Similarly, we look and search, acquire and accumulate for most of our lives, looking for that elusive self that seems to be missing, yet it lies within us. By knowing who you truly are, as a conscious human being, knowing your innate resilience and courage, your nobility and strength to succeed in a highly competitive environment. This is the key. To juggle careers, studies, husbands, children, and families, and still focus and succeed in a challenging environment where ambition reigns and success, regardless, becomes an imperative, is no small feat. So the essence of who you are as consciousness is this: to walk bravely, to feel your innocence, to feel the care in the form of your sisters and the way we take responsibility for all, your warmth in the form of a friend, the passion and form of your loved ones, and your divinity and blessing in the form of motherhood. When you realize that you're a boundless source of love, that's enough. We all talk about sisterhood, about women empowerment and Women's Day, but these are hollow words if we do not reach out and give of ourselves. It starts with simple, random acts of kindness, of being conscious of those around us. We have to become warriors for the underdog, the underprivileged, the homeless, the hungry, and the ill. If we are to teach and learn, we must do so in the knowledge that it is not always easy. Sacrifice will be required, even if they call us crazy. And that is conscious leadership. Whether you are at home, responsible for the family, or the head of a corporation, responsible for thousands of employees. You can be a leader anywhere, a conscious leader. We can all walk this earth in a conscious way, a different way of being in the world. And all we need to do is to turn inward and know the secret to consciousness. So what is the secret to consciousness? Let me share it. The secret of transformation is intimately linked to the breath. We're often unaware of our breath, yet without breath, nothing can have life. The air we breathe is a conduit to the life force within us, and that life force is activated by the breath. It is the breath that makes our minds move and facilitates our organs to function. Yet in our frenetic days, we sometimes forget that the body breathes, even if we are sick, asleep, running or dancing. From your very first breath at birth to the final gasp at death, we breathe. So let me give you a little exercise to demonstrate what I'm talking about, to demonstrate this life force within you. Sit up straight in your chairs. Close your eyes. Take a long, deep breath. Breathe out. Take another long, deep breath. Then exhale all the air in your lungs. Do not inhale again. Just hold your breath and do not inhale. Open your eyes. You can't do it, can you? Something forces us to inhale. Forces us. And really, this is quite important, especially when you step out of this room, to remember this. What is it that forces us? What forces us to inhale is harder to fathom than what is not. Moment by moment concentration on breath and what compels us to breathe is an interesting exercise in raising consciousness. By knowing and understanding the link that evokes the breath and the quality of that life force within us is the birthright of every human being and is accessible to all. A lived example, and I'm not talking pie in the sky, I'm talking lived examples, is a man who experienced this in an instant. He was Roger Bannister, the first man to ever run the mile in less than 4 minutes. How many of you heard of him? The first human being to run the mile in less than 4 minutes, Roger Bannister. He explained in an interview when asked how he did this, he said, "No longer conscious of my movement, I discovered a new unity with nature. I'd found a new source of energy, power, and beauty, a source I never dreamed existed before. Another instance was a mother named Sarah who was trying to change the punctured tire of a family sedan when she heard the unthinkable, her 3-year-old son's terrified scream from beneath the car. The jack had failed and 2,000 pounds of steel had trapped the child. In that moment of absolute terror and love, Sarah's body became a conduit of forces that defied every law of physics that she thought she knew, without hesitation, without thought, without the limiting voice of impossibility. She lifted the car and pulled the son out. These moments, Roger's transcendental run and Sarah's superhuman strength, are not anomalies. They are glimpses into the extraordinary potential that lies sleeping within every human being, waiting for the right conditions to awaken the hero within us. So what Roger and Sarah had both activated was the life force, an energy source that had always been there within them. But like many of us, they are totally unaware of it and had never accessed it before. In a single-minded focus, in a moment of going beyond oneself, without thinking, an instantaneous new level of consciousness that logic cannot express is what we truly experience. Roger and Sarah tapped into something within their beings that was so powerful that it made the impossible possible. This transition from ordinary to extraordinary is a rite of passage, and we all have the potential to do so. So when we are open enough to engage with the truth of us and get out of our own way and cleverness, we will understand that we can access this force that can change the rhythm of our lives. This can only be done with your breath. Physicists have proven that we radiate the life force and the electromagnetic energy field all the time with every waking moment. And since I'm speaking to a room full of women in the media today, let me say this clearly. Like the Himalayan musk deer who wanders the forest searching for the fragrance it already carries, we too spend our lives searching for what already lives within us. As women, the world needs you not to play small. The world needs you awake. It needs your voice, your fire, your compassion, your courage. It needs your boundless capacity to nurture, uplift, and lead. Yes, this will ask for sacrifice, and yes, they may call you crazy, but history has always been moved forward by the courageous, willing few who are willing to be misunderstood. Because as mothers, as women, we are the architects of change, and the future depends on the consciousness we bring into the world. We must understand that power does not lie outside of us. It is not granted by title, position, or circumstance. It begins quietly as a whisper within the psyche of our being, as a call that begins in our relationship with ourselves. It lives in how we think, act, feel, respond, and it reveals itself in the way we navigate both our professional and personal lives. And from that inner foundation, it cascades outward into trust, into tolerance, into sensitivity, and wakens the courage to challenge the many obstacles that may come our way. It summons the strength to live and work with grace, and this is where true transformation begins. For without personal transformation, external transformation is not possible. So without conscious human beings, there cannot be a conscious world. So where are these leaders, these conscious women and men, these heroes? They are here. They are us. Because this is the call of our time. This is the demand of our society. This is the need of today, to serve not only stakeholders, shareholders and self-interest, but to serve humanity itself. And when we as women take radical responsibility for that need, something extraordinary happens. We are transformed. And in our transformation, the world is transformed. So the time is not tomorrow. The The time is not someday. The time is now. And the leaders we have been waiting for are us. So let us not wait for the world to change, but like Gandhi said, become the change. And in doing so, we will leave behind not just success, but a legacy. You know, in the wake of this moment, in this era, the only era that we get to leave our mark, what is our legacy? I would like to ask you this. What is your legacy? Whether you're young or old, think of your legacy. Someday, when we find ourselves at the end of the runaway, when we have to look back on our lives before we take our last breath, what would your legacy be? Did you act in a way that would make you smile proudly while taking your last breath? Did you understand that life was about one life influencing another, about oneness, about humanity, about belonging, about trust and transparency, about care, compassion, kindness in being? Did you see that the only source of power within the sphere of your life was the human being itself? It was you. So did we help to create a conscious, humane society, even with our little acts of kindness, despite the need, greed, and chaos around us? And did we become the voices of integrity driven by moral purpose, reason, thinking, and balance to save the day? Did we understand that no matter who we were, we served at the bidding of an inner sense of purpose? It is never too late to think of our legacy. So what would your legacy be? And as you're thinking of this, I want to leave you with 2 questions. Really think about this. Who are you? And what are you in the world for? These questions will lead you down a rabbit hole, but this can also be a gateway, together with the breath, to initiate the inner journey of consciousness. It is simple enough, but if you go beyond your academic understanding of who you are, beyond your status, your positional power, your bank balance and your asset base, beyond being a father, mother, husband, lover, sister, son and daughter, beyond the intellect, if you go beyond all that and ask yourself, often enough in a quiet space, with every intake of breath, who am I? Ask it again and again in silence with every breath. This should give rise to the forces of nature within you and give you a glimpse of who you truly are. Because if you peel away titles, the roles, the deadlines, the delivery, ambitions, responsibilities, possessions, and positional power, until only your essence remains, then you will glimpse the truth, that you are not separate from consciousness. You are consciousness itself. And like being in love, no one can explain it to you. You must experience it. Thank you all.
Yes.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you. I think I do think we have questions. From experience, I think everyone's just processing this. Yeah. And so what I'm going to say is, let me get you a cup of coffee. Everyone go get a drink. Come back in, and we can actually have a chat about it. I know I have quite a few questions, but it's just trying to figure out which ones. That was a lot. Thank you so much.